Hi everyone, Ann O'Connell here with OC Publishing, and welcome to the author journey. This week is an author journey with an author interview. We'll do a whip tip at another time, but I hope you're enjoying those as well. Our hints, helpful hints for your work in progress. But today we have a gentleman joining us who has recently released a new memoir published by Purple Porcupine Publishing. And his name is Bruce Hughes. And his book is called A Stroke of Luck, Music, Medicine, and a Miraculous Recovery. I'm going to bring that cover up so you can see it. It's a wonderful cover. There it is. Look at this. So any of you music fans out there, that's always an eye catcher, somebody with a guitar on the cover. So this story is, they call him the Miracle Man because it's been truly a miraculous recovery. When he woke up in the hospital after a devastating series of rare strokes and his world was shattered. Unable to move or speak, the thought of ever playing his guitar or performing with his bandmates again seemed impossible. His pain was excruciating and his future was uncertain. Doctors questioned whether he'd walk or talk again. But Bruce's story doesn't end there. It's just the beginning of an extraordinary journey of determination, humor, and healing. In his inspirational memoir, Bruce shares the gripping tale of his miraculous stroke recovery, from his darkest moments to triumphs, both big and small. Bruce's ability to find laughter, even in the face of adversity, played a crucial role in his healing. His story will bring you to tears one minute and have you laughing the next, as he recounts the raw and often humorous realities of recovery. He's a former educator and youth worker with a passion for music. So let's bring Bruce up without further ado to join us on the author journey. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, Ann, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm so happy that you are joining us today. We've been planning this for a little while, so welcome to the author journey.
Thank you. It's a new experience for me, for sure.
Well, you've been on a wild media tour.
Yeah.
You've done some really awesome interviews. And when I was kind of looking back, you had done some with CBC, like before you wrote your memoir. Is that right? Yeah. And it's just, you've been gathering momentum ever since. And very happy to see you looking so great. And laughing. So let's just jump right in. Like,
Sure.
At what point in your healing process and in that recovery did you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to write a book about this?
It was after a lot of interviews, because I was always asked the question, because locally they knew I worked in radio for a while and stuff and did a lot of interviews myself. And people would ask, are you going to write a book? And I'm like, no, I never really thought about it. And then after several people asked me in interviews, and then the pandemic hit, and I had started scribbling some notes down. I could see my typing was like dyslexic and terribly out of whack. So it kind of discouraged me from even trying. But then when the pandemic hit, my wife said, like, you have to be home until there's vaccines, because my type of stroke is in the brainstem category, which controls your breathing. So I knew I was going to be home for at least a couple of years. And I thought, if there's ever a time that I'm going to try this, it's now, just for my sanity, let alone I couldn't play music. I never got a dime in disability. I never got anything for CERB. So I went like 3 years without $1. Wow. And I thought, this maybe will help me down the road. Maybe I can sell it, or, self-publish or make a few bucks. And it took me 18 months to do the initial write. And then when I turned the spell check and everything on, it had 51,000 words and over 250,000 errors. That's how messed up my brain was, like 5 errors per word.
Oh dear.
So I almost quit right there.
Yeah.
And somebody said, oh, use the technology. And I said, that won't help rewire my brain. And it was that second 18 months when I went word by word, line by line. And now I'm down to maybe 2 errors per sentence, whereas before it'd be about 100.
Wow.
So it actually did help my brain to redo it, but it was so frustrating.
Wow. I mean, in hindsight, you can laugh about it.
Yeah.
At the time, that must have just been so discouraging. So let's take us back in time to like the day it happened.
Okay. I was taking care of my wife at home. A texting driver hit her 7 months before and broke her back. So I was kind of her home care worker and taking her to all her appointments and, looking after her in the home. And she had a doctor's appointment that day. And I said, can you see if you can drive? Like put some pillows around and just go up to the mailbox and back and see if you can do it. Because I don't think I can get you there. I'm not feeling well. And about half an hour later, I went to get up off the couch and just a classic went down, slurring, my right side all collapsed. And we were pretty sure I was having a stroke. So she called 911 and they're only a mile away. We could hear them. And all of a sudden I sat right up and felt better than I had for days. They spent at least half an hour with me and said, your vitals are incredibly normal. We can't find a thing wrong, but from the sounds of it, you've had a stroke. And I said, yeah, I think I have too. And they said, well, you can ride in with us or, drive in, but they said, go get checked out. So I said, I'd grab a shower and my wife was going to take the dog for a quick walk. And they left and I went upstairs and the second series of strokes hit. And I remember laying in bed thinking, oh my God, they're going to come back and find me dead. And all of a sudden the door opened and the dog came flying up the stairs. They only got a couple 100 yards up the road and she started pulling my wife home, backing out of her harness, putting up a big fuss. And somehow she knew I was in trouble and brought her back and they called the second ambulance and helped save my life.
Wow. We love our fur babies. I'm going to tell you right now, right? And they do know. And you write about that in your book. And, this book it's mind blowing. It brings you to tears. It makes you laugh out loud. And, now that I'm sort of meeting you, obviously, you've poured a lot of, who you are and your personality into it. So they call you the Miracle Man because you're, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about that, but you mentioned earlier that it was a brain stem type of stroke. Right. And it was something that was extremely rare, but talk about when you got to the hospital and you woke up and you were paralyzed, at one point you said from the eyes down, but at least from the neck down. But there was a surgeon on that thought outside of the box. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, there was a team of interventional radiologists in St. John that had developed this procedure, and it's not uncommon now. It's called a thrombectomy, where they go in through your groin and go up into your brain and mechanically remove the clots. And in my case, I had what's called a vertebral artery dissection. Most people have two vertebral arteries that feed their basilar. I only have one and tore that. So they had to use a heart stent. They had done it once before and saved the life of a guy in St. John. And they put a heart stent somewhere in here to repair that artery, and it saved my life. Wow. And even to the point where I asked them, because I did my research on it because I couldn't talk, all I could do was see. So I get somebody to put a laptop and type in what I was looking for. And the stent itself had a failure rate of 1.6 to 2.1% in the first 30 days. And I'm going, well, when you're 1 in a billion, 2% is still a lot. So, I would question them every day that once I could talk a couple weeks in, what's that pain in my neck, right? And then the doctors wanted to go in and look at it a few days after I was back. And I'm like, that's a magnet, right? Can you guarantee you're not going to dislodge that? This is the only thing keeping me alive now, is that one little piece of metal that keeps blood flowing to my brain. And they hadn't really thought about it, because I said, what if something does happen? They said, we put in another one. I said, how are you going to do that? I said, I only have one vertebral artery. You would have to lay me on a table, kill me, right? Put in another one and hopefully restart my heart.
Come back.
Yeah. And I said, I'm not willing to do that. So they listened to me. They did a conference call because I was so agitated about it. Yeah. Because I just couldn't understand. You're putting me under a magnet like a couple of days after you put this in. It's not even rooted yet. Like if you even dislodge that, it could kill me.
Wow.
So I don't understand the process, but they listened anyway and talked to the two interventional radiologists, and two of them said go ahead, two said no. So they decided let's not. And I was happy about that. I said, let's wait 6 weeks, let it root the skin graft to it. And that's the recommendation when I give speeches at the hospitals. I always tell the doctors, wait that 6 weeks.
Wow.
Don't be in a rush.
Wow. So did you have any kind of healthcare or medical background, or were you just like a voracious reader, or were you just kind of scared and pushing back because
I learned pretty quick, you better self-advocate, right? Like, I mean, our health system, the care I got was incredible, but they're still overwhelmed, understaffed, so stuff can happen and stuff, when you're in the moment, you're thinking of that moment, they're thinking about you and other patients, they can't all think. And where I was such a rare thing, like my neurologist who finally figured me out after 4.5 hours in the ER had only seen one case in her life. Wow. And I just met the first person in 8 years since mine who was a doctor at the Canadian Medical Association Summit in Ottawa a couple of weeks ago. She had the same stroke. And she said, did you say a vertebral artery dissection? I said, yeah. She goes, I have two. How did you even survive with one? She goes, I know what I went through with two, and you only have one. And she goes, that is rare. So, I know how lucky I am. And that's another reason I wrote the book. I want people to know that, there are ways to overcome this. There's no guarantees, of course, but I see too many people give up before they even try. And that's my biggest role now is to motivate those with stroke to try their hardest to have a good recovery. Yeah.
And so you were in the hospital, was it 7 weeks before you moved over to rehab?
No, my entire from the day it happened until I went home was only 51 days. Like most people, it would be 6 months, but I did it in under 2 and had to still spend a lot of time at outpatients for a couple times a week and working out every day at home. So it was probably a full year before I could do everything almost normal. Like I probably got 90% of my skills and coordination and all that stuff back. And when I'm tired, I still slur and drool, and,
Oh, I don't see any drool. And you're speaking really, you're speaking quite clearly. So did you happen to pick an excerpt to read to us by any chance?
Oh, no. I was hoping you'd pick one. But
Oh, well.
If you have a favorite section.
Open it to any page. Open it to any page.
Well, it's been so long since I've even looked. I'll have to put on glasses for this.
Well, yeah, I mean, mine go on my face first thing in the morning and they stay there.
Well, I have a big eye appointment at the end of the month, and I'm hoping, because my pupils, that's the telltale sign with my type of strokes, is my pupils are permanently small. So I don't even know if I can have laser surgery to correct vision problems. So I'm just one of these freaks now that everyone goes, hey, I don't know about him.
You're special. Well, while you're looking for that, while you're looking for that, I'll put up. So anybody who's watching and would like to follow Bruce or learn more, he is on Facebook. Bruce Hughes, Hughes on Facebook. And of course, I think he's the front author featured on Purple Porcupine Publishing as well. Shout out to Vanda at Purple Porcupine, and congratulations for teaming up with Bruce to get this amazing story out. And as I was saying earlier, Bruce is doing a series of interviews, and he's featured on some local and national stories, and I'm gonna show you just quickly before he starts to read this great story on CTV News. I think that ran last week, if I'm not mistaken.
A week and a half ago, April 4th, I think that was the CTV one.
Yeah. And he's done, I was going to show you CBC, but all of a sudden a great big ad kind of popped up in the middle of it, so I can't see it anymore. But the CBC one. Yeah. And are you getting good at them? Like, Are you
Well,
enjoying
I'm better in
it?
the afternoon than I am in the morning.
Okay.
My brain, it takes me a while to get my brain going in the morning. Like people see me and assume that I'm back to my old self. I'm not even close, but I'm being the best new me I can be. And
Yeah.
like some people would come up. No, I've known him since he was a child. He's not even close, but we'll take him as he is.
Not nearly the troublemaker he used to be.
Oh no, I was far from a troublemaker. I'd
Okay.
probably be more of a troublemaker now because my strokes have stripped me of any filters I did have.
Okay.
To the point where I couldn't go back and work in education because I would slip up and say something I shouldn't, out of frustration and say it aloud and probably be fired.
Think that it's in your head. Well, and you mentioned before we started that, of course, you're a songwriter as well and a musician, and it takes different parts of the brain to write a book as it does to write a song. So that was a little bit of a struggle. Talk a little bit about that before you read the excerpt. Like,
okay, yeah, it's just stuff I've noticed. Like because I've met so many doctors, I've actually searched out doctors that specifically do my type of stroke interventions, and not one has ever been able to give me a single answer into a question. And it's just so I've had to do a lot of what do they call self-analyzing or whatever,
reflection.
Yeah, just seeing how I work and what works best for me now, and I know myself better than the doctors do now. And already I've lost track of what your question was because I was thinking about the reading. But
well, go ahead and do the reading, and then we'll jump back in.
Well, I figured just because we were talking about that moment when I challenged the doctors wheeling me in on a thing so they could see it, I decided I'd pick up there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. This is what page? It's early on, page 8. And I'll start here. I knew the orderly who took me from the ER to the radiology department for the CT scan too. She was another former student from the rural public school where I used to work. I was friends with her mom, played softball with her dad. I could tell she was concerned for me, as was the radiologist giving the scan, the daughter of a good friend as well. I felt bad as they were distressed about my situation. They felt my pain as I felt theirs. Having never had a CT scan or MRI, it was so foreign to me, bizarre almost, as I hadn't been in a hospital for much more than stitches or a cast for decades. Last time I spent a night in a hospital, I was almost 3 years old with sunstroke on a family summer vacation in PEI. To further complicate matters, my ongoing leg spasms and massive beads of sweat were keeping me from lying still while they injected dye and then performed the image scan. Another orderly had to stretch my leg and foot just to keep me still. Just as I relaxed enough for them to try, the CT machine failed, and they immediately ordered me into the other of their 2 machines. Luckily, the second machine worked, and I was able to lie still long enough to get a proper scan. Dr. Bauma was in the screening booth looking at the scans as they were performed. They confirmed what she suspected. She already had called St. John Regional Hospital, and preparations were underway to have me transported there. I was again surrounded by medical staff, Dr. Bauma, Monica. Dr. Bauma told Monica I needed to be intubated and sent by ambulance immediately. I later learned that my type of strokes were in the brainstem category, and the brainstem controls breathing. So Dr. Bauma wanted to make sure I could breathe during the transport and procedure. That way, as soon as I arrived at St. John Regional Hospital, they could take me right to the medical theater for procedure with no delay. Someone tried to force a tube down my throat, and I tried to fight them off. Then someone said something about giving me a drug that would effectively paralyze me. Moments later, I felt the needle, and within seconds, I lay motionless, unable to fight, though I could hear them all doing their jobs, trying to save my life. It was terror to me. I was afraid if they put me to sleep, I may never wake up.
Oh my goodness.
And then I woke up the next morning and was paralyzed from the eyes down.
Wow. And so how long? Wow. How long were you actually in that paralysis
Locked
state?
in? Oh, man. I started working on myself right away. I knew about neuroplasticity because I had worked with brain injured kids and in the education field and
Wow.
had taken some to our local rehab. So I knew that, mind over matter is important, and you need to start talking to yourself immediately. Because when I woke up in St. John, the first 10 seconds, I was gleeful, like I couldn't believe I was still alive. And then realizing what are all these, all I could see was tubes coming to my arms, and I couldn't, they had 2 big tubes down my throat, and I have a large Adam's apple, and I was literally choking myself, and I couldn't tell anyone. I was suffocating myself and freaking out like you would not believe. And then I thought the only thing I can do to calm myself is focus. And so I self-talk to this elbow, and I'm using F-bombs and everything, staring at my elbow to calm myself down, to get my mind off this. And 3.5 hours later, it jumped. And my brother was there and saw it, and he ran and got the doctor, and the ICU doctor come in, and he said, well, with all the leg spasms, it could be just, and I thought, that's a good point. And he started to leave the room, and I thought, I've got to do it again before he leaves to prove that it, and 10 seconds, maybe 15, and it jumped, and he saw it and came right over, and he said, did you do that? And I blinked yes. And he said, oh my God, we've never seen anyone make a connection in under 24 hours. And in my brain, I'm thinking, you think that's a big deal? I'm still laying here, and all I can do is see and hear, right? So that's what started. And in 24 hours, I could wiggle 2 fingers and a thumb and rock a foot a little bit. And they paraded students and doctors by. This is amazing. And I'm just like, wow, well, they don't expect a lot out of me, but I was expecting a lot out of myself, just survival mode.
Right.
Fear is a powerful motivator.
No kidding. And, you say that when you opened your eyes, like it was like, oh, yay, I'm alive. But then it was just like this, like, oh my goodness, the realization. And then like like you said, 51 days, which is a lot less time than most. But, you had this huge team of professionals that came together. And I love the part in the book where and I don't want to spoil anything, but it's the first time. Yeah, right.
Spoiler alert, I live.
He's alive, yay. And of course, we know because of the Miraculous Recovery that you are able to play guitar and sing again. But the very first time that you went on stage, there were some of the nurses who had taken care of you in the audience.
Yeah.
And, you say that this book is truly a tribute to the people that work in healthcare in the field, because,
I saw some of them today.
Oh, did you? So talk a little bit about that. Like, how did that make you feel? And
coming out on stage with seeing
coming out on stage, and then also understanding how they probably feel with this tribute that you have done for them.
Okay. When I came out on stage, I only made it for like the last 3 songs. My right leg still wasn't working well. I couldn't hold a pick. I just smashed my fingers into the back and strum. And my wife had seen, I knew some of the nurses were coming because they had never had a recovery like mine either. They've had some good recoveries, but not as good as mine. And so I knew some of them were coming, and my wife saw them scattered around the tent and gathered them all up and brought them right up front along the side. So when I came out, they were the first people I saw, and I nearly lost it right there, crying, and I almost couldn't perform because it overwhelmed me. That's one thing with strokes. It really wreaks havoc with your emotions. It takes a long time to get things in check again. And I was crying and, thanking them. And they're just, some of them have been in that unit for like 25 years. They're just dedicated to stroke awareness, stroke recovery, and so knowledgeable. It was the least I could do, to do a shout out to them. And there was, I think, 7 or 8 of them from that unit there. That the rest were working, but and I think they even broadcast on their phone, maybe back to the rest of them or something. It was a big event for them. So being able to work with them every week and coach other stroke survivors is like paying it forward to me is what this is all about. That they saved my butt. I tell this all the time. It took a village to save this child, and the least I can do is to help them. Right.
Well, and it's funny. You read my mind. A perfect segue, because my next comment or question was going to be, you have made it now your purpose to help others. You've been to conferences, you've spoken, you've done presentations, and you're on a national panel now. Talk a little bit about that. Is it heart and stroke?
Yeah, the heart and stroke one, I'm kind of done with the national stuff. Like they'll bring me up for conference stuff, but the work I did for them is kind of over as far as the national committee goes. But I'm on committees here, and the pandemic has wreaked havoc on committees, because now they're all virtual, and I find like 99% of them get canceled because they can't get quorum. And whereas when we did it in person, we never canceled. Right. And now they're canceled all the time. I'm not very good at the technology stuff, so I miss out on a lot of things now. But the committee work is important, because they take the patient, like I'm what they call a patient experience advisor, someone with lived experience that brings concerns of patients to the committees that the doctors and nurses and therapists are on. And they take me very serious. Like when I bring an issue up, they take it very serious. Like my latest one is sleep deprivation, because I talk about in the book, I went the first 5 days, I never slept a wink. And then I think they registered 10 hours of sleep in the first 12 days. I've gone 4 days with a good brain, in 4 different cities where I didn't get to sleep, and I was a mess. So you can imagine with stroke brain going through 2 weeks of not sleeping and then say, okay, let's go to rehab. I lost it. I'm like, don't ask me to do anything more than just survive. And I said, you either release me from this hospital for the weekend, or I will sign myself out, and there goes your research, because they were at the time of making me a case study. But lawyers got involved, and because the heart stent they put in my neck was not an off-the-shelf use. They were worried I'd have complications and maybe sue them later, so they wouldn't even consider me, right? And now here I am, recovered better than anyone in the world, and they don't have that data. Luckily, my University of New Brunswick, I'm an alumni too, has a robotics lab. And they asked me to take part in a study there, and studied my brain, compared it to a robotic arm. So they got all the data to prove, and published it, I think, in 2023, that I have rewired my brain. And to have seen me in that bed, and today it's obvious I have, but they needed the data. So 2 weeks before the pandemic, they happened to say, we now have enough data on you to prove you've rewired your brain, that your right side does not know you've had a stroke. So that made me feel great that I at least helped in research. And we're going to restart that study, I hope, in 2025. Now the pandemic's kind of over, and I'll help them recruit some more stroke survivors. And hopefully research is the future.
Oh my gosh, you are a miracle man, and that is incredible. And I wanted, like, we were talking again before we went on the air, quite a question I wanted to ask you, and we're going to do that before we wrap up. But I want to give a shout out to the folks who are watching. We've got Nana Lana, and she is probably watching from Calgary. So thanks for joining us, Lana. Sue Slade from Dartmouth Book Exchange, and she says, I like the paying it forward idea. So you really are reaching folks. And of course, having written the book is also, a way of paying forward and giving back and to spread the word. So I also want to give out a shout out. Vanda has joined us.
Hey, Vanda.
Yay.
Thanks for all your help.
Yay.
She's my guru.
She is your guru. I'm gonna put you on the spot now. We know Vanda's watching. So how did you and Purple Porcupine come together?
Oh, right. That's a great story. From our National Heart and Stroke Foundation has a community survivors page with over 3,000 of us. And I met a guy named Steve Lawrence on there, and he says, oh, I'm from Nova Scotia. And I had said, I'm trying to find, I had written a book, and I was asking, because on there you can ask any question, and somebody's had your situation and they can probably answer it. And I said, I'm looking for publishers, or like information how to get published. And he said, well, send me your manuscript. I got a cousin that's a publisher. So I send, he goes, God, this is really good. And he sent it to Vanda, and Vanda respects his opinion. So she said, I've got to check this out. And I'm glad she did. So, it was a stroke survivor that they connected the dots. So it's even more full circle stuff, right?
Oh my gosh. I love that story. And it's the perfect place to wrap up. Can you believe we're already at 30 minutes? But
wow,
I could go another half hour with you, Bruce. I love your story. I love your energy, and what you're doing. Oh my goodness. We'll have you back. So I say that you really should keep writing music and books. And if you come to Halifax, if your band Unheard comes to Halifax, please let us know, and we'll bring a big group. And like I said,
we'd love to. We're playing at the Pembroke Music Festival, June, I think 21st weekend. We're booked there for sure. So, we'll be in Nova Scotia, but I don't know about Halifax yet, but we'd like to get down there for sure.
Okay. Well, some of us will drive quite a distance to see bands that we like. So your newest fan.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll get you back on the author journey.
All right. Thank you so much, Anne. It was fun.
You're very, very welcome. And thank you all for joining us today on the author journey. We were speaking with Bruce Hughes after the launch of his new memoir, A Stroke of Luck, Music, Medicine, and a Miraculous Recovery. So I hope you're all well and you're reading lots and writing, and we'll see you next time on the author journey. Bye for now.